You should have never started.
In his first few weeks in office, Trump has signalled a shift in the US policy on Ukraine, even pointing a finger at Kyiv for starting the conflict with Russia.
You could have made a deal, and no city would have been demolished.
Relations between Washington and Moscow are also changing. Just last week, Trump held a phone call with Russian President Vladimir Putin, and high-level officials from the two sides met in Riyadh to discuss strengthening relations and ways to end the Ukraine conflict. Kyiv and European nations were not invited to the talks, leaving Washington's major allies confused about Ukraine's future. Kyiv's main demand continues to be NATO membership, but that hope is fading.
The United States does not believe that NATO membership for Ukraine is a realistic outcome of a negotiated settlement.
The US also says a return to Ukraine's pre-2014 borders is unrealistic, and US troops will not be deployed to Ukraine. Ukraine and the EU are scrambling to adapt to Washington's new approach.
We
cannot acknowledge anything, any arrangements about us that were made without us.
Earlier this month at the Munich Security Conference, US Vice President J.D. Vance launched a scalding attack on European democracies. The conference's chairman expressed concerns that the values of the US and Europe are not very common anymore. As US and Russian officials met in Riyadh, French President Emmanuel Macron hosted an emergency security meeting with European leaders in Paris. NATO's chief said Europe is ready to provide security guarantees to Ukraine, but underscored there must be US backup.
We still need generally backup from the US to make sure that the deterrence is there.
Washington earlier told its NATO allies they'd have to assume greater responsibility for their own security. The tone's different from that of the previous US administration.
There's overwhelming support from the American people. Our security rests in the unanimity among European and transatlantic partner, us.
Meanwhile, the US is also asking for a payoff for its aid, pushing Ukraine to sign a deal on rare earth minerals.
So we're asking for rare earth and oil, anything we can get.
This also contradicts the stance of the Biden administration, which announced a final package of $500 million in military aid to Ukraine before leaving office. The US Department of Defense says more than $66 billion in aid was given to Ukraine during the Biden administration. Along with the shifting US policy is a widening personal rift between the US and Ukrainian leaders.
A dictator without elections, modestly successful comedian. President Zelensky talked the United States of America into spending $350 billion to go into a war that basically couldn't be won.
Just a month into his second term, Trump's already sent a blunt message to the world. America comes first.